Do you ever look at a beautifully blended card and think, I could never do that? Well, today I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm sharing the secret to getting these ultra soft, magical blends using alcohol markers, and the best part, it's actually easier than it looks. Stick around to see the sparkling finishing touch that brings this whole fairy scene to life. Hi, I'm Revati, and welcome to my channel. This is where we get creative and have fun with colors. To get started, let's take a quick look at the products that I'll be using today. I'm going to be working with this absolutely gorgeous pixie dust stamp set by Simon Says Stamp, featuring a large floral image, and I'll be pairing it with one of those sweetest little fairies. For my sentiment, I'll be using another stamp set, again by Simon Says Stamp. This is the Celestial Wishes, and I'll be using the sentiment that says, Hope your day is magical, which I felt paired perfectly with my entire design today. To get started, I stamped the large floral image along with my sentiment onto a 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel. I used Memento black ink since I'll be coloring with my Ohuhu alcohol markers. Well, I have been using these markers for over 5 years now, and I honestly have zero complaints. I absolutely love them and would confidently recommend them to any paper crafter, card maker, or honestly anyone who enjoys coloring. For this card, I decided to work with very soft, light pastel tones. Normally, when I'm coloring floral images, I am naturally drawn to bright, bold pinks. But for today's card, I wanted something more delicate and dreamy. So I pulled out the lighter pink shades from my collection. Now, when you're aiming for a soft look like this, the key isn't how many colors you use, it's all about how you layer them. For the petals, I didn't limit myself to just one pink. Instead, I mixed a few lighter shades, starting with a soft salmon pink and then bringing in pinks that lean slightly towards pale lavender tone. This subtle variation in color helps add depth while still keeping everything light and airy. I began with the salmon pink as my base layer and applying the color evenly across the entire petal. I'm not focusing on individual strokes here, just smooth, consistent coverage. Once that base layer was in place, I went with a second shade of pink and gently pulled the color inward from the tips of the petals. You'll notice I'm using a very light hand for each of those strokes, especially near the edges. These alcohol markers are very juicy, so there's no need to press hard. Let the ink blend naturally and do the work for you. Taking your time and building up the color slowly makes all the difference when you're going in for a soft pastel finish. This process does take a bit of patience, but it's not all that difficult. If you take a moment to look at the flower petals in nature, you'll notice all those beautiful lines and subtle strokes running through them. That's the inspiration I like to keep in mind while I'm coloring. And if you're a beginner, my biggest tip is to simply enjoy playing with the colors rather than worrying about using any of those fancy techniques. Now, after adding the strokes of the darker shades to each of those petals, I went back in with the same color I used for the base layer and lightly applied it all over the petals once more. This step helps blend everything together and really softens the overall look, bringing all the layers together seamlessly. Moving on to the leaves, I'm layering multiple shades of greens, starting with the darkest shade along the edges and gradually working my way towards the lightest shade as I move to the center of each of those leaves. You'll notice that the lightest green that I'm using here is more of a lemon yellow toned green, and that's what helps create the soft glowing highlight while keeping the edges nicely shadowed. This technique is something that I really love, and it's something that I often use when working with watercolors as well, where you lift some of that wet color with a dry brush to create natural highlights. Translating that idea into alcohol markers helps gives the leaf more dimension while still keeping the look soft and organic. I use the same technique to color in the stems as well. You'll notice a subtle variation in color where the depth and intensity create a soft highlight through the center and gentle shadow along the edges. This contrast adds dimension and gives the stems as well as the leaves a much more natural and realistic look. For the flower centers, I began by adding small dots of brown right in the middle and then fill the entire center with very soft, subtle brown, almost like sandy shade. To bring those details to life, I added touches of orange and yellow to the tiny pollen elements that extend from the center of the flower. Well, that completes the main coloring I wanted to focus on. You could absolutely use this floral image on its own as the main focal point of your card, but I decided to take it a step further, and off camera, I colored in a little fairy along with an adorable bee and a dragonfly. I kept the coloring on these elements very simple, using the lighter shades of purples and blues that I had in my stash. Now, before adhering all of these little elements on my card front, I also wanted to add a few delicate trails for the bee and the dragonfly to give the scene a bit more movement and make it look a lot more whimsical. I placed my panel onto my stamp wheel and stamped the little trails from the pixie dust stamp set on either side of the floral image. I made sure to check the placement carefully so that all the elements lined up just right before stamping. Once that was done, I foam mounted the colored panel onto a green top folding card base. I felt this shade of green complemented the natural elements of the card front perfectly, tying everything together beautifully. I added small pieces of foam tape to my fairy, the little bee, and the dragonfly. That tiny lift might seem subtle, but it makes a world of difference in the finished card. It's these little details that bring a sense of magic and life to your project. Suddenly, your elements feels like they're floating right off the page. I love how these small tricks can really make certain parts of your card pop, drawing the eye and adding that extra bit of charm and dimension that turns a simple card into something truly special. Well, this is a fairy tale card, and of course, every fairy needs her little sparkle. I grabbed my Spectrum Noir glitter brush pen and added shimmer to all of those colored images, the petals and the leaves of the big floral image, the fairy's wings and her dress, and even the tiny bee and the dragonfly. The sparkle really brings everything to life and adds that whimsical and magical touch. I absolutely love how sparkly this card turned out. It's this kind of finishing details that I absolutely love and adore in my finished projects. You could definitely take this card a step further by adding ink splatters, sequences, or other embellishments. But I decided to keep it simple and focus on the subtle details, the coloring, and the absolutely gorgeous shine and sparkle on each of those elements. The camera does not do justice to all that shine there, but in person, this card looks absolutely stunning. I also added a few highlights using my white gel pen on the petals, the leaves, and the fairy's wings. I love how these tiny touches of shine make the image pop instantly, giving them extra dimension and bringing the whole scene to life. Just make sure that whenever you're adding your highlights, you add it at the very end after all that glitter and sparkle on your stamped and colored images. And with that, our fairy tale card is complete. I had so much fun bringing this magical scene to life with the soft pastels, delicate layers, and just the right amount of sparkle. A quick question for you. Would you like to see a full real time coloring video of this project? Let me know in the comments below. If you're looking for more beautifully colored projects like this one, be sure to check out this playlist where you will find plenty of inspiration and step by step tutorials. And don't forget, all the supplies that I used for today's video are linked in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.